officially 20 were killed. Out of those 20, 19 of them were killed by hanging from a tree. The only one that didn't die that way was a man named Giles Corey. He was actually crushed to death with stones. Even though it's mostly women that got accused, there were some men too. Giles Corey was known as a strong, somewhat defiant guy from England. By the time this all started, he was 80 years old though, and before he was accused, his wife Martha was actually accused of being a witch. She was a pretty well-known church-going woman. She was 72 at the time, but she actually spoke out against the girls that were accusing people. She said the girls were obviously lying, and she tried to stop her husband, Giles Corey, from going to the examinations. So this gave the girls a reason to blame her. She was pretty outspoken, and she called out the girls that were accusing people. So eventually, the girls accused her of being a witch. And her husband, Giles Corey, actually testified against her, against his own wife. Once he realized this, he did try to recant his statements, and he realized what he actually did by saying those things. He started to openly criticize the trials too, which is probably why he was accused just a month later. He actually had the rights to his property legally written out to his 2 sons, and he refused to plead guilty or not guilty, because under English common law, which they loosely followed at that time, the court couldn't convene a jury and conduct a trial without a plea. He knew if he would plead guilty, they'd just take his property, and if he would plead not guilty, they'd go on with the trial, convict him, and take his property anyway. But by not entering a plea, he made sure he was never officially brought to trial. Like I said, people weren't allowed to legally torture anyone, but at that time there was a legal principle under English common law, and it let them use what they called strong and harsh punishment to convince them to enter a plea. I mean, strong and harsh punishment sounds like torture to me, obviously. But the reason they were allowed to do this was because the person wasn't being hurt for the crime they got arrested for. They were being hurt because they refused to work with the English law system and enter in a plea. It was seen as them going against the crown, and it was a way to make them plead guilty or not guilty. So they decided to strip him naked. They laid him on his back with a board on top of him, and they kept stacking stones up until it crushed him. The whole time they were trying to get him to confess, and his famous last words were, "More weight." His wife was executed 3 days later, and his 2 son-in-laws did get his property, so that was kind of a way for him to get the last laugh. But his wife was executed 3 days later, and that was actually the very last day of the executions.